Well, good morning. Welcome to another episode of Papa's Workshop. These are for Adam, Brady, Luke, and Brenna. Well, today we're going to actually start making sawdust for the block front chest. And in front of me here is a stack of wood. And that's everything I need to build except for, I've got the drawer fronts, but I don't have the material for the drawer sides, the drawer bottom, drawer back, or the back of the cabinet. I still have to get that. I need some wide 10-inch boards for the back and the drawer bottoms. So anyway, this is enough to get started. This is going to be the case and the frame underneath and the legs and the top of the cabinet, the sides and all that. So and you can see we got some 2-inch, it's actually 2 1/4 inch thick for the drawer fronts. This is one drawer front I had left over from another job. These two will be the molding up top. I got a piece of white oak left over from the swing. I'm going to use that since it's already the thickness I need. I'm going to use that for the back member of the frame. It doesn't get seen. And we got some maple here. It's hard maple for the frames inside the case that the drawers will run on. I usually use a hard maple so that it doesn't wear as much. I'll use something soft on the drawer sides so the drawers will wear, not the case, because it's easier to repair the drawer than it is the. And then we got the bottom of the cabinet is going to be poplar, and of course all the blades there. So we got to cut this all up into, there's some extra in here. Not every inch of every board is going to get used, but I need to cut it all up into the approximate sizes of the pieces, and then we can actually get started. But we need to check in with my assistant. Almost forgot. She's over here hiding because she doesn't like it when I move around these big boards. Hold on. There she is. She usually runs for cover when I start moving these big boards. I think she's afraid one of them's going to fall on her. Are you worried about that? You worried about a board falling on you like it's ever happened? Yes, I know. Oh, it's my good girl. Yes, that's my good Molly. All right, no more. Well, I guess there'll be a little bit of movement, but I'm going to make them smaller, then you don't have to worry. All right, let's get to work. All right, here we are. I got most of the stuff cut up into pieces with the chop saw. All right, you remember the chop saw? It cuts across the grain. So I've cut these boards all into things. Now some of these need to be ripped into smaller pieces, and by ripping I mean I'm going to cut with the grain of the wood. And I'm going to do that on the table saw with a rip blade. I'm going to use a rip blade because I got to cut that really thick stuff. I'll show you in a minute. But sometimes I needed a board long, and they didn't work out where I could cut the board in half. So I had to take a jigsaw and cut it like that, and there's the other half. So now I'm using the joiner. I'm going to straighten one edge so that I can safely cut it on the table saw to do the rip. So I'll cut it down that way, and the same with this one. And so all these other pieces I have to run one edge on the joiner so I can then rip these all safely. And the same with this 2-inch stock. Here's the stuff on that cart I've got cut already, and you can see the 2-inch stuff. I got two. This is what I've already cut, and there's stuff behind it, and those don't have to be ripped just yet. But I got two of these pieces here. This is going to be 2 of the drawer fronts. I need to cut it so I miss that sapwood. And can you see the sapwood? The sapwood is the outside of the tree. See, here's bark, and so the last little bit of that is lighter. And you have that on all woods, but some woods it's more apparent than others. So cherry, walnut, it's white like this also. I think like an oak, sometimes it's darker than the rest, but not by much. And there's two things you can do with a sapwood. I mean, it's still good wood, so you can use it and then try to color, take some dye with a small brush and try to dye it the same color. Once you've got the piece all done and cut and planed and sanded and all that, you take the brush with the dye, try to match the color, and then just fill in just that white part to get it looking the same color. And then you would do the rest of your finish on your piece the same. It comes out pretty good. Or the other option is, if you've got enough room on the board, is to just cut it out or put it in the back where it's not going to be seen on the inside, that kind of a thing. So now I got to run all these pieces through the joiner and then rip them up on the table saw, and we'll get one step a little closer. All right, it's taken all day pretty much to get the wood off the rack and figure out the best way to lay everything out and to get it cut into manageable pieces. Everything is rough cut to size, except I didn't cut anything that's less than 12 inches. So the legs are still in blocks. I'm going to put two legs together when I do the planing and such. When I go through the planer and the joiner and all that, it needs to be about at least 12 inches long to be safe. So I cut everything up into the pieces except for the parts that are less than 12. So that's basically the legs. Both, you've got the two front, 4 on the sides, and 2 in the back. So they're in chunks. Everything else is cut to rough size. So you see, I got them all on stickers so that they all have air can get around freely around it, so that the moisture will come out of the board equally, and hopefully nothing. Which this stuff's been sitting on my shelves for quite a while. So the cherry, a year ago I bought a truckload of cherry, all from the same tree. So I still have quite a bit left, but so that's all been sitting here in the workshop for a year, so I'm pretty sure that'll be fine. So tomorrow we'll get serious about where we start. So time to take a rest. Good morning. Here we are, ready to start getting serious. So we got everything cut to rough size. So where do you start on a project like this? Well, the original, I'm sure they started with the case, because the case went all the way to the bottom and to the top, and everything was applied to it. So you'd have to start with a case. But for my piece, it's going to be a little different, because I'm going to have a frame underneath the chest, or the case part of it. The case is the box, right? So it's got the outside box and then the drawer dividers, which are called blades. So first you got to do the box. But because I'm going to set this on the frame, the bottom of the case will basically be a blade. It will have the same in and out profile, the blocking profile, on the bottom of the case. So we'll have, in this case I'm using poplar for the bottom of the case, but it's going to have a strip of, these are the two planks I have to glue together for the bottom. And this will be the front of it that we'll have to cut that shape on there to make the bottom. The top of the case, which won't be seen, it'll be covered up by the actual cabinet top. It's just going to be two boards like this. It doesn't really matter the width. It's not going to be the full thing. It's just going to be a front and back, just to hold the case together. And then these are the sides which I have to glue. The original was made out of mahogany, and they would have used 20-inch wide boards for the sides. I don't have that luxury. I mean, you can get stuff like that, but it's expensive, especially mahogany that wide. So that's why I'm using cherry, and I can get some 12-inch boards. But you see they've got some sapwood in them. It's got that white, so I'll have to cut that. If it's on the back side, it doesn't matter, but I have to make that front edge. It's going to have that beading profile on the front, so whichever ends up being the front edge of this, I have to make sure there is no sapwood, because that will show. And like I said, I got this cherry a year ago from the same tree. Well, these, I had 2 planks this width that were 9 foot long. So the top and both sides I'm getting out of 2 boards that were cut book matched. I mean, this was cut from the tree like this. This was one board, this was the other board. They weren't together, so when I open them up, they are book matched. You probably can't see it, but they've got the same grain pattern on both boards. And I did that same long board I cut in the chunks for the 2 sides and for the top. So I have to plane this and glue these 2 together for the sides and the top. And I'm going to wait on the case, the cabinet top. I'm going to wait. That's one of the last things to do, so I'm just going to leave it like this. But so I have to get these planed so that the 2 sides and the bottom, I have to get those planed and glued together before I can do much of anything else. But because I'm doing the frame, I have to also kind of work on them together. It's a case of what comes first, the chicken or the egg. We've got the profile. It's got to be on the frame. It's got to match what's on the case, and then later the drawers. And they, they would have done all that molding up in front by hand. I mean, with chisels and then probably finished up with a scratch stock, which is just a piece of metal that's shaped like the profile you want, and it's got the sharp edges on that. They used to scrape, get the final profile the same all the way around. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to use a router to make that molding at the bottom, and the molding is going to be not attached, it's part of the frame. So the frame itself will have that profile on the front of it. And I made some test pieces like this, kind of to see how close I could get to there. And so I had to change the bearing on the bit so it went in a little farther. And then I got to use a separate bit to do this little step there. So it takes 2 passes to do that. And so why is that important? Well, because I'm going to make a template, and the bearing of the router bit is going to ride on the outside of the molding. So I'll have to show you the picture here of the case, that where that goes in and out, it's not at a 45. So I'll show you that. All right, so here we are, the picture of the case. And so this is going to be the frame. This section of molding right there is going to be the frame. So it's 1.5 inches to 1 9/16 thick, and that'll go all the way around. But if you notice, one of the curiosities, this is not a figment of the camera, you see that we got this angle here is not the same as this angle. Why is that? Well, you got this piece of the molding is going out, and then it goes down the side of the case. That's at 90 degrees, so it's mitered at a 45-degree angle, and that gives you the full view of what the molding looks like. But this is the same molding here, so why is this angle different? Well, it's because this is not coming in at 90 degrees right here. It's a gentle curve from where this light hits, it goes in. So let me show you here. Let me grab this. Looking down at it, if this is our flat spot, this is the side of our case, that is not, I've actually seen some books and things that shows it's just a little bit of a flat and then just a little curve. That would make this at 45, so it would be the same as that side if this is our molding. But that's not what it's doing. This is coming in at 90, but right here where this line is, that's coming in a real gentle curve like that. Then it's flat. So when you split that angle, it's steeper as if you're looking at it from the front than this over here. So that proves that this is a gentle curve, is because that line isn't lined up. But you can see how all of that, if you change the thickness of this molding, or if you change the angle that this is coming in at, this curve, you will change either this line, the drawer line going up, or this line going down. And since I have to start at the, since I'm going to route this with the router on this outside edge, I have to do this first in order to see where I actually end up. If this doesn't match even the smallest amount, it's going to look wrong. So see, they all match up. So in my case, I have to start with the frame first, at least routing this profile. So I'm going to make a template allowing for the thickness that I'm actually going to use for this molding as it sticks out, and then make a template, you know, to cut this outside with, and then I'll route it with this shape. I won't worry about mitering the edges yet till I get the case. I won't know where this corner is until I actually build the case part of it. See, so it's like I said, chicken or the egg. But I got to do this profile first, then I can line this where this ends up. Then I can make my template for the drawers and for the blades. See, the blades have this bead on it that sticks out 1/8 of an inch more than the rest of it. So there's slightly different profiles for the blades and for the drawers. But it all depends on where I end up here, you know, at each of these points when I do the frame. So long-winded explanation, but that's the challenge of pieces like this, is to get this all in the same line. You see, and even the leg is matched that same point. I will have to, I can't do the legs even until I get this. I know where this point is, and actually where this point out here is. So that's where we're at. So today's agenda is get these planed and glued, the two sides and the bottom. Get the this is going to be the frame stock, and I'm actually going to get two deals out of this. There is a little bit of the piece underneath the frame. I'll have to show that too. So this stock, the frame's only going to be 1.5 inches thick, but this is 2 1/4. So I'm going to take a 1/2 inch slice off of this and use that for the filler underneath, and then I mark it so that the grain matches up. like it was all one board, which it will be at one time. Matching up the grain is an important part of it. That's why I went to the trouble with the sides and then the blades. I would try to get the grain to look on those edges to look as best I can the same or similar. So I got to plane this square and then be able to cut off my 1/2 inch or 3/8 slices and then get this down to the 1/2 inch. Then finally I'll have to make a template for the frame first, and based on how deep my profile. If this changes the depth this way, that changes what's on the inside. So I've got to make my template based on what I'm actually going to use for the router bit and how far back I want that to sit. So there you have it. Well, ran into a problem right out of the chute. See that? See that crack? This is a frame stock. I had one long board, and so I cut it in half this way for the two sides. I noticed the crack was only going about this far with both pieces, but when I cut it, I almost heard the thing snap. And so now the crack was only on one side, and it was about, I don't know, 8 or 10 inches long. And I didn't notice it yesterday, so it may have been, it just happened after I cut it. But then once I cut it in half, it's on both sides. So you could pull it apart. And the other board, I pried it apart, and it just came apart. That's the other half of this board. See, it was one long board like that. So that's not going to work as my frame piece. Now the tree might have had some stress in it. Maybe it was from the drying process. I'm not real sure. The fact that it went right down the grain line, I kind of wonder if there wasn't in the way it popped. There was definitely some stress in there. What it was from, I'm not sure. But these can be made into two thinner boards, but they're no good to me as this one I may still be able to salvage. Cut my 1.5 off of here, so we'll have to see. But those are the things happen, mistakes happen. This isn't really a mistake or anything you could have predicted, but you can't work on anything too long and not have mistakes. That's just being human, and it's all part of it. You just have to overcome. So this one too, I'll just have to find some other lumber and get it figured out. I did check with the board that I cut this from, and there is just a hairline crack you can just barely see. And this was also on this was I was going to use for the front. And it's just a little bitty hairline thing. If you can see that, it's right next to the red line. There's this little black line, I think, is it right there. So I hope when I cut this, it doesn't come apart. So we'll see what we can find out. All right. Here we are the next day. I got the sides glued up, and see how that matches from side to side. And this one's got that one there. They're a little oversized. They still have to be trimmed to size, but I'm gonna have to let that sit for a little bit, and then I'm gonna have to scrape this. I don't know if you can see. This is curly cherry. And you see these little rays, that's the grain is doing this, and that's what gives it. So it's going to color different. I think it's pretty, but it does make it hard to plane. You have to have a steep angle, and a sharp and a very close mouth. In this case, the boards were already pretty flat. I ran them through the planer and then glued them, so they look pretty close. So I think I can get by just using a scraper plane and go over it, get all the machine marks off of this, and get it ready. So I did come up with another substitute. I was able to get that board that cracked. One of them I was able to still use it. The crack was in such a place that I was able to do it. So I came up with another spare piece for that, and also at the same time found this piece here with the bark and the sapwood on it. I'm going to use in the back instead of that white oak piece I had. But remember yesterday I said this was the front frame piece, and there was a little line that I thought maybe was a crack. Well, this morning, I don't know if you can see that line there, and see I can squeeze it and it closes. So I may have to come up with a new piece for this. I've made my template for the frame. The blue line is the drawer front, as the way I have it drawn on my, and then my molding piece. This is the profile I'm going to use, and it's only 7/8 wide instead of the inch that I drew it at. So I had to readjust, make this, redraw this outside one at 7/8 out. So hopefully, I'm not going to make the drawer template one until I actually have the frame piece cut. So since I got this one already milled and ready to go, and I traced out on it, and right where that crack is, it's going to be cut down. So maybe, I don't know, I'm going to cut this out and see what happens. Like I said, the piece is kind of trash. If it doesn't work for this, it's not going to work for much. So anyway, I've used the template and I drew out the line. So I'm just going to, the bandsaw, I'm going to cut most of that out, just real close. And then we'll take this with double-sided tape and tape it down on there. And then with the router with a pilot bit, it will make the front of this square with this pattern. That should be about it. I got the bottom I just glued, so the bottom's down there with my assistant. She is hard at work as usual. Anyway, let's see what happens with this front board.